Yo, where were we yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday we ended up going to this Gucci event, and did I say did I say that? Am I telling the story right?
Yo, we was popping bottles. We was at this Gucci event, and man, what these niggas on, man? Like, nah. So basically, long story short, I have a good friend. Her name is Heather. She's always looking out.
We're gonna have to beep that because everything that has to do with Gucci now, people gonna be name dropping. This person who shall
Hey,
not be named.
but
Shout out to the person.
shout out to the homegirl. She's always looking out,
She knows who she is. Shout out to her.
and she hit me last minute. She was like, "Yo, do you want to work this gig? Like, we just need you to go to this high school and like do traffic, be a traffic guard for like Sprinter vans." I was like, "Word!" Like, and she showed the rate. I was like, "Okay,
Yep, that rate was nice.
very sexy and
Super easy.
super easy." But for me, like, money don't move me.
No budget.
Like, I'm always gonna be like, okay, but why am I going to this, and why are y'all trying to pay me this?
No budget mentality.
And she was like, oh, like it's an event like about like Gucci giving out scholarship to these high school students at Crenshaw High School. I was like, oh, word, Gucci, oh, okay. So like when she gave me that invite, I also gave the invite to Danny because she was like, we need another person. Danny was like, nah, I'm good. And then I was like, oh shit, who's somebody else that would not only financially take value from this, but like just like being in the environment.
I ain't gonna lie, I was in it for the financially. I was in it completely for the financially.
But I was thinking about the other side of it, like, you never know.
Right.
And like whenever I sent it to you, like in a heartbeat. And obviously,
Because to be clear, you sent it to me and didn't tell me any details. It just said Crenshaw High School worked the parking lot for X amount of money, whatever it might have been. And that was all I knew about it. So
um, and yeah, and then when we pulled up, it was, bro, the west side of LA is super chilly, man. Like,
man,
I don't know if I can do that shit for like ever.
it
But
was a mean 60, 55, 60 degrees.
with the wind chill,
Yeah.
um, fast forward, the event starting, like niggas getting out of Sprinter vans, and you're like, oh, this person works for Gucci, and they drape down. They are draped.
You knew who worked for Gucci.
Facts. They
They
were
weren't
wearing
dressed like
Gucci.
they were at Crenshaw High School. Definitely
Nah,
not dressed like that.
they weren't dressed like me. They were dressed like they had like catalogs, like deep cuts
Mm-hmm.
in the collection. And whenever I was like greeting people get off the Sprinter, I opened the van and I see like a gang of people, and then one of the people in the gang was Dapper Dan.
Do we have something to drop for that?
Man, I
Dapper
said,
Dan, the GOAT? The
man,
GOAT?
what am I gonna drop for this?
That's what happens when you open the door and it's Dapper Dan.
Bro,
That's straight air horns, you know what I
air
mean?
horns, the legend, and the I broke character. I was like, bro, you are a legend. That's all I said. I shook his hand. I was surprised he shook my hand during COVID times.
Yeah, it was cool, man. I got that Dapper handshake too, man. I feel like it changed mentalities, it changed lives, bro. Straight
Facts.
up.
And like after we worked the event, we went to the after party, had some free food, and talked to some good people. And it was just a reminder, like, we're in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
We're the right people.
Absolutely.
And sometimes being in the right place, you might have the wrong perspective, and you may not be able to see the value of the things in front of you, or the things, or the alley oops being passed to you. And it's okay. Sometimes you get past the rock and you're like, nah, like you can do more with it today.
Right.
But I'm so grateful that when a random opportunity landed on my friend's doorstep, she randomly thought about me, and then it randomly landed in front of you, and like the value was able to be extracted because it's like, bruh, like there's not that often. Most people on Earth see people on TV and never get to touch them.
Uh-huh. Like, yeah, that's something I was really thinking about, man. Like, so many times I have like been in contact with these people, and I don't think about the alignment that goes into that.
Bro,
Like being in the same space for real. Like there's so many different contexts as to how that happens. But then you think about like some let's just say someone like who lives outside of the major cities who's, perhaps not in the flow of those sort of things, right? It's like I be having to remember. It's like, man, like, yeah, we ran into Dapper Dan. Yeah, we ran into a bunch of great people yesterday, right? And that's not the only time. But I'm like, man, I be having to remind myself. It's like, yo, like I'm not at a fucking meet and greet. You know what I mean? Like I didn't like get the backstage pass to that or that. You know what I mean? Like, nah, like this is like being lined up. Like I'm in the building, you
facts.
know? And that's a tough thing. I mean, that's like something that I really had to grasp. Even waking up this morning, it was like, man, like, of course you could think about the details of what you experienced to get in that room.
Yeah,
You take it for granted. You'd be like, like anybody could have done that. And then you realize you're like, nah, like that shit is, very much so aligned by, you know, some sort of commonality to those people. You know, somebody who knows, or you got into a room that invited you to be in contact with this person. And
facts.
that just lets you know it's just not that far at all. It's
And
just not that far.
bruh, and like they're always gonna tell you the same thing. Just you gotta do the work. And like when he was at the mic and was giving his speech, he was like, "Yo, like when Gucci knocked on my door, it was like, yo, we wanna work." He was like, "Give me a store in Harlem."
Uh-huh.
And then he was like, what was the sec? Because I remember the third one. What was
He
this?
was like, let me do what I've been doing this whole time.
Let me do what I've been doing.
Which Dapper Dan was taking all the high end stuff. Cause we gotta actually, I'll be forgetting, like, it took me a long time to even know who was behind what I saw in hip hop. And I was like, oh, that's the illest shit ever. Like, I thought it was the labels that were on the clothing. I thought it was the Gucci's, the MCMs or whatever
Yeah,
that was on LL Cool J seats. Like, nah, that was Dapper Dan who took those fabrics and remixed them and told a different story through hip hop with that level of creativity. No clearance, you know what I mean? But he went and sourced those items, those materials, and
it was
went
stupid.
crazy with it. And it's like it was in the beginning, the forefront of hip hop fashion culture. Like it was what you think of when it comes to like quintessential hip hop shit. You know what I mean?
Facts.
So
So it's like,
Dapper Dan,
give me
do
give
your
me this,
homework.
give me those tools, give me the store in Harlem, and then make me international. And when he said that, I'm like, damn, like you can only do that to like a fashion house as big as Gucci when you have leverage.
Yep.
When you have demand. Obviously he was in prison for a while, then he got out. The documentaries that built his name up, built his respect up,
Yep.
this respect
And
that was
and
stolen from him.
yeah, and also just to fact check that, and we'll go back and you know, make sure for real, everything is on point as far as it goes with this. But I don't believe he actually went to prison for that, but he had to go underground and keep doing what he was doing.
Mm.
So he went to other cities. Of course, they came through and they closed the shop down. You know what's crazy is the person who closed this shop down was like, she is the one who I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she is the one who became like the one of the first Latin ladies in the Supreme Court. I can't remember her name,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
she's the one that shut down his shop and came through. It was like, yo, like this shit is nice. He goes over it in his book, yo, this shit is nice, but we got to shut you down. And
Copyrights.
of course he owed money and things like that, but I don't believe he actually went to jail for that, but he had to go underground and hustle and go to different cities, like outside of the major cities, like, Chicago and Cleveland and things like that.
Mm.
So, um, to get back to what you were saying initially is like, man, like, um, the hustle and grind that it takes to get in and stay in what you're doing and then to transcend it so that your work precedes you is, to take a line from you is man, like, there's always the hero story behind that shit. um I think one of the things that was most inspirational to me, and I wish I would have gotten to talk to him after he did his speech on the stage mentioning the things that you mentioned, was um like, for us it's the parallel of like, yo, like being independent versus getting with a major, right? For him, he had a point where he was independent and they shut his shit down.
Facts.
And then when it was time, because the internet wouldn't let them live it down when they tried to recreate his work on the runway and profit off of it, Gucci came back and it was on his terms.
Facts.
But honestly, they didn't have to do that,
No.
you know?
They could have still finessed their way around it. They could have got a little kid that was doing it, paid him a fraction of the price.
Yeah. So like, um, it showed me that even though capitalistically I have an eye up for Gucci or whoever is a high fashion brand, a high generating brand that capitalizes off of, the success, hard earned money of black people, but is not owned by us. Of course, I'm gonna look at it like, nah, I don't really know if I fuck with it.
Yeah.
But to hear all the things that they are actually doing and how many black people are in charge of running and giving back
Which was surprising to
Gucci,
see.
it was very surprising, and it changed my heart on some things, and it made me realize like, there's ways to play the game,
Yeah,
you know.
and bro, and like everything has a net good and a net bad. And I'm not the judge. Like when you think about your Prius, you're like, "Oh, it's hybrid and all this and that." But how much gas did it take to get that Prius to the dealership? How much water did it take to make it? How much carbon emissions did it take to create it?
Mhm.
These are still things. These are what they call in economics negative externalities that you may not calculate in your initial equation, but it's still a byproduct
Mhm.
of the creation. And it's like, bro, everything has a net negative and a net positive. And ideally, everything has a negative, everything has a positive. At the end of the day, you want to make the world better off, better than what you came into it as. And that's everyone's goal, ideally. But some people don't give a fuck. Obviously, like you have BP doing their oil spill and then be like, oh, we're just going to
Oops.
oops, my bad. But like, and that's not the point of this conversation. But like, I know people can be like, oh, Gucci's evil. It's gluttonous and all that. But at the same time, they changed the kid's life yesterday.
Yeah, they did
So like, obviously that.
change the kid's life, and they put a lot of money into soul. It's called Soul Folks, right?
Yep.
I know exactly what it is, but I forget if it's Soul Folks or if it's Soul People.
Yeah. So
So
folk.
it's Soul Folks in Lamert Park, and they
Yeah.
working on buying that whole building, and
Facts.
that in itself is an example of it's cool because it's it's what Dapper Dan actually preaches. You know what I mean? Like, before everybody was buying things up in Harlem, like outsiders were buying up Harlem. One of the things that he mentioned in his book, in his interviews, was like, yo, he was telling people like, yo, you need to own these things. You know what I mean? Like, don't just be satisfied with occupying it. You need to see the value in buying them.
Facts.
So for him to, I'm sure, to have inspired the people by opening that shop, they're now trying to buy up that whole building so that nobody can tell them that they have to leave.
Facts.
And there's another business right next door which I love, which connected me to the Lamert Park area and art scene, and that's Hot and Cool Cafe. And
Yep. And
another one next to that is SO on Books, which is a historic black owned bookstore. You know what I mean? Like, So it's great to know that they're taking steps to make sure that those things can stay in the community.
Facts.
And
Because
it's the perfect partnership between Dapper Dan and Gucci to be, offering, you know, an investment of sorts, or a grant so
facts.
that those things can happen.